So I'm not promising you guys anything. Like, I cannot promise you that Bitcoin's going to go to 130 or 140K, but the best case for it to happen is that if dominance is going to go back up to 66%, right? If dominance is going to go back up to 66%, that's the best chance that Bitcoin has. If Bitcoin dominance does go higher, if it continues to go higher, and Bitcoin USD does whatever it does, as dominance goes higher and higher, assuming that our assessment of this move is correct, the higher dominance goes, we have to start, potentially pivoting, especially as quantitative tightening approaches an end in December.
The charts are turning ominous again. As November approaches, Benjamin Cowen, a well-known crypto analyst, warns that Bitcoin may be on the verge of a death cross, a technical signal that sounds far scarier than it often proves to be. Still, he notes that with price momentum weakening and the 50-week moving average hovering near $103,000, traders should stay alert. Even a brief drop toward that level could test market confidence, though history suggests a rebound toward $114,000 to $115,000 remains possible if Bitcoin can hold its ground. From a broader market perspective, Cowen suggested that this cycle may lack the euphoric surge characteristic of earlier bull runs. He argued that even if Bitcoin were to climb as high as $140,000, enthusiasm might be muted if altcoins fail to rally alongside it. In his view, the market's sentiment has matured, investors are more cautious, and speculative excess is more subdued. Moreover, Cowen reiterated that Bitcoin remains the dominant force within the crypto ecosystem, stressing that altcoins have little bearing on the key technical trends currently shaping the market. Concluding his analysis, Cowen outlined a best-case scenario where Bitcoin's path to new highs depends on dominance rising to roughly 66%, indicating a stronger shift of capital away from altcoins. He drew parallels to previous market cycles, predicting that dominance might peak in December, aligning with the anticipated end of quantitative tightening by the Federal Reserve. Since Bitcoin dominance also topped when QT ended in the prior cycle, Cowen suggested that history could repeat itself, potentially marking another pivotal turning point for Bitcoin's trajectory. If you found value in this breakdown, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with other investors who are paying attention. We're here to keep bringing you sharp analysis and voices that understand what's unfolding. Thanks for watching.
Right, we should see a death cross in November if the price action of Bitcoin still remains somewhat suppressed from the prior levels. So it is something to think about. The other thing is that 50-week moving average. Again, this is one of those spookier things, right? If you look at the 50-week moving average, if we go below it on weekly closes, then there's a decent chance that it's over for a while, right? Now, the 50-week moving average is currently at around $103,000, so we have a little bit of wiggle room. You could actually overlay the Bollinger Bands and see that in a lot of these prior consolidation phases, Bitcoin tagged that lower part of the Bollinger Bands before it then moved up. And that Bollinger Band low right now here is around the same level as the 50-week moving average. And in 2019, when we had that drop right here, it also found that low around the Bollinger Bands, and then it rallied back up to the midpoint, right? The midpoint. Now, the midpoint right now is about 114, 115K. So I guess you could hope that even if the cycle is over, and that's all she wrote for the cycle, and we have nothing else to look forward to until maybe 2027, 2028, that if we do come down to the 50-week moving average, there's still a decent chance we could then come right back up to like 115 or so. And then maybe the market starts to accept things. I still think that all things considered, we have to be pragmatic. We have to not just paint rosy pictures just because we want them to be. There is a reality that this cycle, we might not get a euphoria phase. You could even have like the market could even go to all-time highs and you still not get a euphoria phase, right? If Bitcoin were at 140K right now, I truly don't think anyone would care. I think people would care for a few days, but if altcoins aren't going with it, people aren't going to care. So I'm not promising you guys anything. Like, I cannot promise you that Bitcoin's going to go to 130 or 140K, but the best case for it to happen is that if dominance is going to go back up to 66%, right? If dominance is going to go back up to 66%, that's the best chance that Bitcoin has. The best chance. Because what essentially is happening on the Bitcoin dominance chart, people are waking up. As we speak, it's now at 60%. For a lot of altcoin holders, what's spookier than that? And as I've told you guys, for months, we were going into this final rotation where people are going to start converting their altcoins to Bitcoin. And it's happening. And when Bitcoin dominance can get above the bull market support band, it should go a lot higher. A lot higher. And I know I've been saying it for months, but it's happening, right? I mean, this is week 7 of Bitcoin dominance going up. I can't convince the degens any faster. This is what's going to happen. They got to figure it out for themselves. So I understand that it's spooky, but Bitcoin represents the best of the cryptoverse. The best of it. Your altcoin is irrelevant to this conversation, right? I'm not talking about your alt. I'm just saying, in general, Bitcoin represents the best of the cryptoverse. And that is why dominance is going to shoot through this. And it should go a hell of a lot higher. So I guess that's the most dubious thing I could say on Halloween. We'll see what Bitcoin can do here, and if Bitcoin dominance can go up. I still am looking at dominance. I see it going higher. It reminds me of this 2019 move where Bitcoin stayed elevated. I will say this, though. If Bitcoin dominance does go higher, if it continues to go higher, and Bitcoin USD does whatever it does, as dominance goes higher and higher, assuming that our assessment of this move is correct, the higher dominance goes, we have to start, potentially pivoting, especially as quantitative tightening approaches an end in December. So I'll leave you with this. What are the odds that dominance tops in December? Because I'm starting to think that's the most likely outcome. It would be perfect. Bitcoin dominance tops in December. Why would it be perfect? Because quantitative tightening ends in December. And last cycle, when QT ended, that's when Bitcoin dominance topped, right? And I know everyone wants to front run everything, but that's when it topped. And now QT is going to end in December.
Benjamin Cowen offered a more eerie and cautionary perspective on Bitcoin, focusing on one of the market's most foreboding technical signals, the death cross. He explained that while the name itself evokes fear, it is a lagging indicator based on moving averages that naturally trail price action. Interestingly, Bitcoin's reactions to these signals often defy conventional expectations. So-called golden crosses, typically viewed as bullish, are frequently followed by short-term declines, while death crosses considered bearish often precede rebounds. Cowen illustrated this point with past examples, such as the golden cross in May that led to a 12% drop and the death cross in April that was followed by a rally, noting that these counterintuitive moves have become a recurring theme. Looking ahead, Cowen analyzed the potential for another death cross to form, defining it as the 50-day moving average crossing below the 200-day moving average. He observed that with the 50-day average hovering near $114,000 and the 200-day still rising from prior lows around $84,000, the conditions appear favorable for a crossover unless Bitcoin stages a strong rally soon. Though he stressed that an upward move could prevent the signal, Cowen added that if the cross does occur, it might once again serve as a local bottom rather than a bearish turning point, a pattern consistent with Bitcoin's historical tendency to recover following such technical events. Let's get back to the interview.
I thought we could look at Bitcoin in a more dubious and spooky way. So one of the things that I was thinking about, what could we talk about that sounds scary? And one of the things that we can sometimes talk about that sounds scary is the death cross, right? Like what sounds scarier in a market than saying something's going to have a death cross. And so what I thought we could do is maybe just look at a potential upcoming death cross for Bitcoin. Now, death crosses in and of themselves are not great indicators because they're lagging. By definition, the death cross indicator is a lagging indicator because it's based on moving averages, which lag the price. So, a lot of times when you have a golden cross, the price of Bitcoin dumps. And a lot of times when you have a death cross, the price of Bitcoin rallies. Now, we've gone through this many times, and what's interesting is despite how frequently we say it, the same thing just keeps on happening. And every time people go through the motions of, well, if everyone thinks it's going to happen, then it won't. And it just keeps on happening. Let's go through a couple examples. If you look at the last golden cross that Bitcoin had, it was in May. And we actually did a video on it back then and said, look, guys, while a golden cross sounds good, and you're going to be seeing it all over the place over the next few weeks, usually when a golden cross happens, Bitcoin dumps 10 to 15%. I believe we even said expect a 10 to 15% dump after the golden cross. And we got one, right? We got a 12% drop. Now, the overall rally continued, but we still got a 12% drop. And before that, we had a death cross on April 6th. And what did we say back then? We said, look, normally Bitcoin rallies after a death cross. And again, should they be named something else? Maybe, but that's what they're named. So usually on golden crosses, the short-term move is a dump. And on death crosses, the short-term move is a pump. If you believe that, then the only thing left to figure out, there's two things. First of all, will the death cross occur? And second of all, if we get a death cross and the price rallies, can it go to an actual new all-time high? So let's think about that. First things first. Let's see. Are we going to get a death cross? The death cross, in this case, is defined by the 50-day moving average going below the 200-day moving average. The 50-day moving average right now is at around 114K. Because the price of Bitcoin is less than 114K, and if you go back, say, 50 days, and you look at the fact that we're replacing prices 50 days ago of, what was the price 50 days ago? 115K. We're essentially replacing these prices up here with these prices down here. And so because of that, the 50-day moving average is going to start dropping. It's going to start dropping. Now, the 200-day moving average, if you go back 200 days to see where Bitcoin was, it was actually at around 84K. So the 200-day moving average continues to climb because we're replacing these lower prices of 84K with higher prices of 109 or 110K. So it seems likely that the 200-day moving average is going to continue to slowly grind up, and it also seems likely that the 50-day moving average is going to start dropping. Now, there is no guarantee that you get a death cross. Like, there's a chance that if price can rally, the death cross could be avoided. And that's actually happened before, right? I think there's times where it has looked like you were going to potentially get a death cross, and then it didn't actually happen, right? Like where you start to see the 50-day drop, but then you still don't actually get a death cross. What's interesting is in 2021, when we had a death cross, the price of Bitcoin rallied. Now, there are exceptions, but if you go through most of them, right? If you look at 2023 and you look at 2024 and you look at 2025, you can see that the death cross marked a local low. Now, if you guys remember earlier this year, when we had a death cross, I told you guys back then that we will likely have another death cross in 2025 because that one happened so early. Normally we get a death cross in the third quarter this cycle, the third quarter, but then this year we got one in early Q2, and it looks like we might get another one in the fourth quarter.
The broader picture reveals a market caught between fear and opportunity. Technical signals like the potential death cross and the position of key moving averages suggest short-term turbulence, yet history shows these moments often serve as setups for renewed growth rather than long-term weakness. Each cycle has demonstrated that while price dips can shake confidence, they frequently create the groundwork for stronger recoveries. Even if volatility persists and enthusiasm remains muted, Bitcoin's structural dominance and resilience continue to underpin the broader crypto landscape. If price stability can hold near major support zones and market rotation into Bitcoin strengthens, this period of caution could evolve into the quiet accumulation phase that often precedes a major rally. The coming months, therefore, may not bring the excitement of a euphoric surge but could quietly define the base from which the next decisive move begins. Could the end of quantitative tightening in December mark the start of Bitcoin's next accumulation phase? So, stay tuned for clear, data-driven insights into the financial system. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss our weekly updates. Thank you for your continued support, and we hope you enjoy the video.